Hey there, welcome to the MCN tutorial video series, and today we'll be talking about facilitating in the activation workshops. So it is important for you to be prepared because a prepared facilitator is a great facilitator. So you start off by being prepared by being in contact with the school, letting them know which day you're coming and the time so they can allocate you different classrooms or one classroom. And then you would prepare your materials. Your materials would be your flip chart paper, your flip chart stand, your pens, your markers, your registers, and your Spark magazines. So those are the important things to have for an activation workshop. Also, don't be worried if you don't have a flip chart stand and a flip chart paper. You can also use the classroom board. When you get to the school, you'll be allocated a classroom. So you can go to the classroom, set up your flip chart stand, and have your material ready on a desk. The important things to uphold during the session is you have to be active, you have to be a good listener, you have to be friendly yet professional, and you have to manage your time properly, as the session isn't that long and there's a lot to cover during the session. The objective of the session is to basically activate the learners to be change makers and also select change makers. But with this, please let them know that they will be the ones selecting and nominating each other, but you will be there to guide the process. Start off with an energizer. So this is very important so that it sets the tone of the session and it also lets the learners loosen up a bit. Group norms is basically like a set of rules. This you can also have written down on your flip chart paper, and then you can just ask them to add on to it so that they feel that they are part of the process of creating a safe space for them. Because it's very important that everyone feels valued and respected within the session. Then you'd move on to the first activity, which is asking the learners, what is the change maker? Now it's very important to take down their answers as they speak. So also this helps you get the learners more involved and helps the session become interactive. So the co-facilitator can scribe while the other facilitator leads the conversation with the learners. And then you would write down their answers that they have for you. They can give you different answers. A change maker is someone who fights crime. A change maker is someone who protects other people. They can even give you names. The most common one, a change maker, is Nelson Mandela. And then you would ask them then, why is Nelson Mandela a change maker? You know, because what you're trying to have is different characteristics of a change maker and not just a person being a change maker. And then you write all of these down. And then you bring in now the Spark magazines that will help you now define and sum up the definition of a change maker. You can do this in an interesting way. You can ask the learners to read the Spark magazine. What does it say a change maker is? Or you can also read it yourself. So this helps them also still getting involved into the whole process of the next activity, which is superpowers. This is also very important because these are the different skills and talents that they will be using in their change maker activities, right? And then you ask them what a superpower is, what do they think a superpower is, and just remind them that we're not talking about Superman, Dragon Ball Z, we're talking about day-to-day humans. What do you think superpowers are? So they can say things you're good at, your skills, your talents. Maybe your superpower is playing soccer, your superpower is talking in front of people, your superpower is technology, you know? A lot of them have different superpowers. You would take all of these also down. Continue the activity by saying that they should continue in their Spark magazines. So in your Spark magazines, there'll be 2 figures. They should choose one figure that they will write down 2 or 3 of their superpowers. Just give them 3 minutes to do this. And then you ask for volunteers to share their superpowers. You would then collect the classroom superpowers on a flip chart stand. Then after this, you ask them to fill in the superpowers of the second figure. Now the difference is that the second figure is another classmate. They don't have to write down their names, but they do know each other. So you can just ask them to write down someone else's superpower that I've picked up in the classroom, maybe even outside, that this person is caring, they're kind, they share, so that they're all aware that everyone here has superpowers and they also do recognize each other's superpowers, right? And then you also ask for volunteers to share a about this. Then you sum it up by telling them that we have all these superpowers in this classroom. Imagine what we could put together if we use all our skills, our talents, and our knowledge to do something that will create a positive change for our school, for our community. You would move over to the next activity where you would talk about vulnerable groups. So you'd ask them, what do they think vulnerable groups are? So they would have different answers, and you ask them why they're saying that these groups of people are vulnerable. You would stick to our top 3, obviously, for the sake of the session, because then it's easier for you to navigate, right? And the learners will basically share what the vulnerable groups are. You would note them down, and they would also give their reasons why. So after the learners have mentioned these different vulnerable groups, you would select only 3 from these: women and children as one group, people living with disabilities as the other, and the third one will be the LGBTQIA+ community, and then you would focus on these 3. So what you would do with the learners is ask them, why do they say these groups of people are vulnerable? So they would give different answers. Women and children need protection because there's a lot of crime in this country, there's a lot of hate crime, and then you would also take all of these down on a flip chart paper. You would ask the learners, what can we do? So now we're not talking about the government or the police or anybody else, but the people in this room. What can we do to ensure that these groups of people are better treated? They would give different answers, and then what is important is that from these answers that they are giving you, you're noting them down. Now they would have to pledge what would they be willing to do differently now after this session, because they understood all the different reasons and all the different social ills that these people are facing, you know, because these are everyday things that they get to see, but they don't really take time to think about the effects and everything else around them. And then you would ask them to make a pledge as individuals in the session towards these groups. So some may pledge to protect these people, some may pledge to raise awareness about their disabilities that they're living with. Some would pledge to be allies for these groups, you know, and these pledges we will all take down, and then you can say them together as a classroom. So now we get to the nomination part of the session. Learners are allowed to nominate themselves, and also their peers can nominate them. Please ensure that everyone who is nominated is in agreement with the nomination, because this is something they have to participate actively in, even after the activation workshops. So then you'd ask the learners to put their heads on their desk, and they'll be voting by raising their hands. You just ask them to also just close their eyes to ensure that the voting is fair for everyone. So you just read a name out loud, and then each learner is allowed to vote only once, and then they raise their hand for the person that they would like to vote for. Please make sure that they know that this person will be representing their school and their class amongst other changemakers within the Changemaker network from different parts of South Africa. After the learners have voted, you may announce the results, and then what you would do is give the learners that are selected consent forms, right? And make sure that they have their contact details on the register, and also you can just use your own phone to just double check that the numbers are correct before you leave the school. You would close off the session by letting the learners know that you will be in contact with them for further Masifunde Changemaker Network activities, and then after that you encourage the learners that are not selected that they should still go on and use their superpowers to create positive change, because change doesn't only come with one person, but it comes with a group of people working together.